It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. Protests against the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, have been growing throughout the U.S. over the past few weeks. During his address to the joint sessions of Congress on Tuesday, President Donald Trump repeated his promise to repeal the ACA and replace it with something better. Let's have a look.
I am also calling on this Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare. Reforms that expand choice, increase access, lower costs, and at the same time provide better health care. Mandating every American to buy government-approved health insurance was never the right solution for our country. The way to make health insurance available to everyone is to lower the cost of health insurance, and that is what we are going to do. Obamacare premiums nationwide have increased by double and triple digits. As an example, Arizona went up 116% last year alone. Governor Matt Bevin of Kentucky just said Obamacare is failing in his state, the state of Kentucky, and it's unsustainable and collapsing. 1/3 of the counties have only one insurer, and they're losing them fast. They are losing them so fast. They're leaving, and many Americans have no choice at all. There's no choice left. Remember, when you were told that you could keep your doctor and keep your plan, we now know that all of those promises have been totally broken. Obamacare is collapsing, and we must act decisively to protect all Americans.
And here is Senator Bernie Sanders reacting to Trump's comments on the ACA on Wednesday morning.
Good evening. Before I respond to President Trump's speech and what he said tonight, I wanted to say a few words about what he didn't say, because when you analyze the speech, sometimes what is more important is what somebody does not say as opposed to what they actually say. Some examples. At a time when over half of older Americans have no retirement savings, I did not hear President Trump say one word, not one word, about Social Security or Medicare. During the campaign, as we all remember, President Trump promised over and over and over again that he would not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid.
Until recently, it has been unclear exactly what the ACA replacement would look like. However, a few days ago, a draft of the Republican plan was leaked, and according to this document, some of the main provisions include eliminating insurance subsidies for low-income families and eliminating the expansion of Medicaid. Now, joining us to talk about these plans for healthcare is Dean Baker. Dean has written extensively about the ACA, and Mr. Baker is the co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research and is the author of Rigged: How Globalization and the Rules of the Modern Economy Were Structured to Make the Rich Richer. Dean, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
So, Dean, let's begin with what we have heard thus far about the Republican replacement plan for Obamacare.
Well, a couple points I want to make. First off, you had the clip where Trump was saying that Obamacare is collapsing. That's just a lie. There are more people in the exchanges this year than last year. There are no doubt problems. So, good for him. He's discovered that the healthcare system has problems. The rest of us knew that, but, he's a little slower than the rest of us. Anyhow, it's not collapsing. They're trying to make it collapse. If it does collapse, then it'll be because they killed it. It was not collapsing at the point he took office. That much is clear. Now, in terms of the replacement, it's remarkable. Here we are, over a month into his administration, we still have no clear idea. I mean, they want to get rid of the Medicaid expansion. They want to get rid of the mandate that people have to get insurance. But what does their plan look like? I'm sorry, I can't tell you because they haven't given us that information. So we're in a situation where they're telling us they're killing Obamacare, so people cannot count on the policies they have now beyond the end of this year, but we have no idea what's going to be there in 2011. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting what year we are. 2018. That's pretty damn irresponsible.
So, Dean, a major reason that Trump keeps mentioning and the notion of repealing the ACA is that healthcare premiums have skyrocketed in some states. And he mentioned some of those states. What is your response to that argument?
It's a really important point. A lot of people are confused on. We already have insurers competing across state lines. So the big insurance companies, United Health, Aetna, Cigna, they all offer policies in multiple states. In some cases, maybe even all states. I can't say for sure, but there's nothing that prevents Aetna from offering policies in Ohio and Indiana and whatever other state they want. What they're talking about is taking away the power of states to regulate insurance issued in those states. So what they're proposing is if an insurer has a policy approved in any state in the country, I'm going to pick on Mississippi. I don't know if they have bad regulation, but for purposes here, let's say they do. So they allow a policy that's very questionable to be approved in Mississippi. That means that in California, and New York, and Wisconsin, and Minnesota, they have to let that same policy be sold there. So what they're trying to do is take away states' power to regulate. That's what they're talking about. Insurers can already sell insurance in whatever state they want.
Now, this is contrary to normal Republican discourse in terms of states having more autonomy.
It's 180 degrees at odds with that, and it's really just kind of amazing. Maybe I shouldn't be amazed anymore, but states' rights has always been this great principle for them. Well, they say that when it's a question of protecting the rights of African Americans and other minorities, but when it comes to interfering with corporate profits, they're totally willing to get rid of states' rights, and so they never heard of them.
Right. And of course, another aspect is that the Republicans are proposing a tax-free health savings account. What is it, and would this be a problem in your eyes?
Well, again, this is one of the great jokes that, people familiar with healthcare policy, and we have to assume at least some on the Republican side understand that the whole point is to get people in a common pool. There's radically different health outcomes. Most people are healthy, and that's a great thing. But we do have roughly 10% of the population has extremely high expenses, average of over $50,000 a year. To make that affordable, you have to get people in a common pool. So that means those of us who are more healthy, we're lucky we don't have large expenses, we're going to pay more than it costs to insure us, because the idea is we want these people who are less healthy to be covered. If you don't want them, fine, let them die in the street, but they aren't going to say that. So if you give me the option of having a health saving account, me as a relatively healthy person, I'll say, oh, great, I'll put, $5,000 a year in this account. It's tax privileged. If I actually need the money for health care, I could use it for that, but otherwise it can accumulate year after year. I could save a lot of money that way. That's great for me. But what that means is for the less healthy people who really need the insurance, they're going to be paying really high premiums, and the Republicans have nothing but empty promises to offer them.
Right. And the other, of course, aspect of all of this is that Republicans are proposing a replacement plan to eliminate subsidies and the Medicaid expansion plan. What is it, and what will the consequences of this be?
Well, again, between the Medicaid expansion and the subsidies in the ACA, and also, of course, the requirement that insurers provide insurance for people without discriminating based on their conditions, that extended coverage to 20 million people. You take those away. You take away the Medicaid expansion, you take away the subsidies, and you make a joke, we'll just say, of the requirement that you can't discriminate, because they will be able to discriminate under the terms we've been hearing. You will see tens of millions of people lose insurance. And that, to my view, is a really, really big deal. That's why there was pressure felt by both parties to have healthcare reform back in 2009, 2010. And I have to imagine that pressure is going to be much stronger when people see they could have had it, but the Republicans decided to take it away from them.
Right. And Dean, I guess one of the big points that resonates with everybody is that ACA has, in fact, in terms of premiums, skyrocketed, doubled in some cases for most people. What is your response to that argument that Trump was making yesterday in his speech?
Well, it's a couple points. First, it is misleading. There were some states that did have large increases. Part of the story there were the original premiums were very low. So when they first offered plans back in 2014, the premiums were considerably below what had been projected. Now, whether they were looking to get a large share of the market, or whether they just had badly underestimated the cost, who knows? But with this, what we've been seeing with these increases has been a large extent catch up. But I will say, obviously, there are problems. There are clearly problems. There's a lack of competition. Many of us wanted there to be an option for people to buy into a public plan, say a Medicare, Medicaid type plan that would have lower cost and ensure that there was at least some element of competition in the markets. It would be great to have that. And, if you want to be serious, how can we fix it? Well, that would be a great way to go. But to just say, we're going to throw this out and jump into the unknown and we'll see what comes up, well, that's fine if you're a billionaire like Donald Trump and other people in his cabinet. But for people who actually need insurance, that's a sick joke.
Right. And so, of course, now everyone is looking to people like you who've actually looked into the details of Obamacare and now, what is supposedly being proposed, which we don't know exactly what it is. But where should people be, focusing on in terms of their critical views on what Trump is proposing?
Well, you have to see how it is they propose extending coverage to people with pre-existing conditions, because that's a big issue. I mean, most people are healthy. Cover most people, no big deal. They don't have any health. For the bottom 50% of insurees, their average expenses are less than $1,000 a year. No big deal to insure them. That's not an issue. The problem is those 10% with average expenses of over $50,000 a year. So how are those people being covered? And what they're proposing is a lot of hand waving at best. And basically, at the end of the day, I'm fairly confident most of these people won't be covered. And what that means is the people who really need care aren't going to get it.
All right, Dean, we thank you so much, and we appreciate you coming on and giving us a very, very focused analysis on what's going on so that we can take it up in other aspects of our work. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for joining us here on the Real News Network.